The Tertiary Education Trust Fund has evolved over the years as the leading interventionist organization for public tertiary education in Nigeria. Though TETFund has been consistent in its efforts to halt the rot in public universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education, the institution has injected renewed vigor in bringing research and development to the fore. This initiative is described as the paradigm shift. The objective of the paradigm shift is to obtain new knowledge which can be applied to practical uses. To obtain new knowledge applicable to Nigeria's needs that eventually will result in new or improved products, processes, systems, or services that can increase the tempo of the nation's development. The Executive Secretary of TETFund, Professor Suleiman Elias Bogoro, also known as the Apostle of R&D, is the driver of this initiative. One of the ways TETFund is changing the face of tertiary education in Nigeria is the establishment of centers of excellence. These are organizational environments that strive for and succeed in developing high standards of conduct in a field of research, innovation, or learning. Professor Bogoro tells us more.
The TETFund Centers of Excellence is, I can assure you, it took me discussing with the Executive Secretary of National Universities Commission, Professor Abubakar Rashid. In fact, I remember, let me give him credit. He said to me, Prof, look at it this way. We have a department of R&D and Centers of Excellence in TETFund. Can we consummate it with the emergence of TETFund Centers of Excellence from the coming budget year? And that's why we came about 12 Centers of Excellence, 2 in each of the 6 geopolitical zones, mainly first, second, and third generation universities. And I will tell you the concept is simple. Before now, the most notable Centers of Excellence were the ACEs, as we call them, the African Centers of Excellence funded by the World Bank, which NUC houses and manages. We had about, is it 11 or 14 the first some years back, and then additional more than 10 also were approved. And some of them, they are winding down, while the new ones are on. The idea of a center of excellence is simple. What challenged TETFund? Like I said, based on the advice that the Executive Secretary of NUC gave me, and we made case to the Board of Trustees, and they graciously approved it, is this. Why is it that only World Bank will have centers of excellence in our tertiary institution? It is not good enough. It's a shame. We should have our own centers of excellence. Now, what is the concept of a center of excellence? Let me attempt a casual definition of a center of excellence. My understanding of a center of excellence, and it's a global phenomenon, historically so, is a center that encompasses, by all parameters of academic evaluation, the very best in terms of faculty and infrastructure that competes with the best anywhere in the world. That is what a center of excellence is. We aspire so. We may not, for instance, we may not have the best cutting edge laboratory equipment. We may have some basics, but when a discipline, a department has some basics, and it may have some good faculty members, and you want to strengthen it and make it a center of excellence. If initially they had only burettes and pipettes, don't mind my job. Then you say, no. Let's move to the level of amino acid analyzer. Let's go to those facilities that produce results at the fastest rate based on current technology. And you want to make available those things. If you have strong faculty that you have trained and gotten PhD from some of the best centers, they are ready, but don't have the equipment. Complement those equipment. And believe me, those PhD holders that went to Germany, UK, Malaysia, came back to Nigeria, they will rise to the occasion, and they will produce other PhD holders who will constitute the foundation of sustaining that center of excellence. That is what a center of excellence is all about. And that is our dream for TETFund. So we established 12, and these are the first, I call them inaugural 12 TETFund Centers of Excellence in various disciplines, mainly in STEM disciplines, with significant number in food science and tech, some of them in marine, some of them in artificial intelligence, of course, medicine, pharmaceuticals, etc., etc. Some one or two, I think, University of Ibadan in interdisciplinary studies, that is very unique, and the University of Abuja in governance and leadership. You will agree with me, that is very unique also. So this is the concept of it.
The TETFund boss has entrusted the implementation of this vision to Dr. Saliu Girey Bakari, the Director of Research and Development and Centers of Excellence. Dr. Bakari provides further information on this component of the paradigm shift.
Center of Excellence is, well, it has different definitions, but just for our own understanding, it's supposed to be a center that is known for a particular aspect of research or group of aspects of research. In the whole world, if you think of journalism, someone will say, if you're going to UK for journalism, go to so-so university or institute. They are known for it. Heart surgery or anything to do with cardiology, someone will say, if you want to get anything on cardiology, get it right, go to so-so place. That place is known for its speciality. It's about speciality. It's about not only special, but being on top of the game in that area, So you cannot be, eventually, the target of Professor Bokoro is that all Nigerian universities should be centers of excellence. A university itself can be a center of excellence, or part of the university can be a center of excellence in a particular area. But the overall, in our own plan, strategic planning, is that over a period of time, say 10 years, all our universities should actually be centers of excellence. You should be proud to say, I went to so-so university. People say in those days, oh, I did medicine in University of Ibadan. In those days, or agriculture, abuse area. You know those areas, or you are talking about, as I said, anything to do with cardiology, University of Maiduguri Teaching Hospital, something like that. So that is but today, over time, one, because of lack of funding, two, because of lack of strategy. That's why the World Bank came up with their, the Centers of Excellence model of World Bank, which all African countries competed. And luckily, many got it in Nigeria, actually. Many got it in Nigeria. So that's how the idea of Centers of Excellence came up under the ES. And starting from this year, he's establishing 12 Centers of Excellence, all in universities, in different fields, with an allocation of about 1 billion naira per center. And of course, when you have 12, it goes without saying that you will have 2 in each geopolitical zone, because we are a federating, we operate a federal system, and by a federal system, you have to make sure that there's equal representative at the federal level. So starting with these 12 now, and going forward, each year we'll be establishing more and more centers of excellence in different fields. Initially, focusing on agriculture, for example, medicine, climate, food security generally, the security itself, peace and security. We are starting with priority areas of government, priority areas these challenges that confront us today. The economy. We know that the government is struggling to make sure, especially with the COVID-19 and other issues, we have to have a sound economy that is independent of, and also that is purely locally, that evolves, So you need a center of excellence, even on governance, So this is the idea, and we are starting this. We have just developed a draft criteria and manual for it.
Centers of excellence are typically geographically centered and focused on high potential and growth areas in science and industry. But they may also be virtual, distributed, and consist of a network of cooperative partners with a coordinating center. But what are the key ingredients for centers of excellence?
You must focus on a particular thing. It's not everything goes. If you are specializing in agriculture, you are specializing in agriculture. And even in agriculture, you must specialize in certain areas of need. That is one. Secondly, you need specialists that will focus on this. You need to have the human power. I don't want to say manpower, I'm a gender specialist. So you need to have the human power that will focus, that will man those centers. And the centers have to be independent of interferences. There must be resources. There must be training and ongoing training. A center of excellence should be producing postgraduate students, master's students, PhD students, postgraduate fellows, in particular in those areas. And they must aim at producing, there must be product at the end of the day. So these are some of the ingredients. You have to have resources. You have to have criteria for expenditure. As of course, this is about governance structure of it. So this is what we are putting in place to make sure that our centers of excellence, and they have to be sustainable. That's the key thing, actually. The whole essence is for sustainability. You don't just bring in money into a center of excellence and you keep on bringing in money there. It should be self-sustaining. And for it to be self-sustaining, you have to have all those governance structures in place. The training angle must be there, and then the resources. It must be able to be producing resources for itself and also actually contributing to a national economy. That's where we're heading to.
Most centers of excellence converge on a number of academic and socio-economic goals. However, there are those whose purpose is to stimulate technological innovation in some sectors, and those with more general objectives, including policy support or regional development. Regardless of strategic orientation, all centers of excellence have in common the notion of excellence. COEs are potent instruments for nation building insofar as they have the potential to realize human resource development, improve organizational capacity, and create an institutional framework in research and higher education. Their importance for developing countries cannot be overemphasized, especially when one considers the focus areas of these centers.
When I went to study at Sussex, the first thing that caught my attention is there was a unit for Royal Navy in the university. And I asked myself, what is the Royal Navy doing here in the university? Later I realized that it's a center that was focusing on security, on peace, on winning war without firing a shot, on intelligence. You understand? So, you have in this country a lot of professors that focus on, let's say, criminology, peace studies, security, defense, and so on and so forth. They are everywhere. But you only teach those as aspects as a course unit for undergraduate students or for postgraduate students. At the end of the day, nothing comes out of it that will really help the nation to address its security challenges. You may be surprised that in University of Maiduguri, where Boko Haram started, you hardly find even a working group in the university from among the professionals to say, let us analyze, let us study, let us focus on how to address the challenge of Boko Haram in Maiduguri. You hardly hear, today you have the soldiers doing it, fighting for the last how many years. But hardly they are supported with evidence-based strategies to win the war, as well as win the hearts and minds of, when an attack took place in the United States in September 11, the United States spent billions and billions of dollars in their own universities studying terrorism for the first time as something that will contribute to national security, not only just as a course of study, not just studying peace or security or terrorism, and you have an expert in terrorism and he publishes papers, and then those who care to read. No, as a strategy, as a focus, as a government-owned strategy of addressing terrorism in the world. It has sponsored a lot. It has invested in the universities, and I've also seen that in the UK. In fact, the UK came up with what they call the winning the heart and the mind. It's connecting minds. Yeah, the UK came up with this program of connecting minds. And actually, it's the universities that was given huge amount of money to come up with policy initiatives that could help de-radicalize and also make sure those who have been radicalized, and also make sure that nobody is radicalized, and also make sure that the nation is safe and everybody understands the need for it, for safety, for peace, and so on and so forth. So you need a center of excellence that will actually focus on this. If you only say, yes, we are teaching peace and conflict resolution in University of Jos, so under social faculty, AB Ibadan, under social faculty, you are only producing graduates who look for a job, and who some of them may not even end up getting any job, So who look for a job and who may not contribute as a national strategy. You don't have to have the focus. Yes, you have NIPS here, but, that carries out some depth of studies and contributes to national development. But you need a center of excellence on peace, on security, that will even analyze this security. Talk about, for example, what's the relationship between corruption and security? And how do we address the issue of even corruption? In fact, the ES is talking about center of excellence that will focus on corruption. Because in most cases, you see us addressing symptoms of corruption instead of addressing the actual cause of corruption. If you're only addressing symptoms, you are just giving analgesic to somebody who has a problem. Has serious, maybe even terminal illness. You may not even know what is happening. You keep giving him analgesic. After 2 days, you change from paracetamol to another thing, and from that to another. You have not really addressed the problem, and that's one key problem with corruption, for example, and with any other problem. You have to really get to the root of the problem. And if you have a center of excellence, the center of excellence will look into the different dimensions of this and will try to connect the whole. And when it connects the whole, it gives you a solution on how to address the whole, from the root cause of the problem to the symptoms and to the side effects, and to even withdrawal syndrome. If you want someone to live, someone who is fantastically corrupt, he needs to be helped to get out of corruption. Even if he wants to leave corruption, for example, there are what do you call the withdrawal syndrome, withdrawal effect. You have to help him to even adjust from that withdrawal effect. Otherwise, it's a problem. So these are what centers of excellence mean to achieve.
There are three basic strategic aims for establishing centers of excellence. First, the overarching goal is to support national and global competitive research and development in strategic and applied sciences, including medicine, with the aim of generating innovations. This is usually done with a focus on government-defined priority areas. Second, is bringing together the complementary resources needed for technological development and industrial application. And third is bridging the gap between researchers and users while stimulating and strengthening the triple helix relationships, which unite government, the academia, and industry. Analysts have often noted the adverse effects of sudden termination of noble projects over the years in Nigeria's existence. This has inspired the TETFund team, led by Professor Suleiman Bogoro, to develop plans for the sustenance of this initiative.
Every university has its own area of comparative advantage. So it's one of the things. That's why we say we are not imposing now, but we have to look at, let's say, I'm only suggesting, if you talk about ruminants, for example, cows or cattle, sheep, goats, in this country, I think if you go to the northeast, you find them more in the northeast, for example. Every zone has its own peculiarity, and there are universities in those zones that may address those peculiarities. And every university has its own area of comparative advantage, as I said before. Maybe Ibadan may be very strong in medicine. I'm only assuming or suggesting, I don't know. Maybe Zaria may focus on agriculture. You know, so it's easier to help them to invest in those areas of competencies, areas of comparative advantage, so that we are more effective and more efficient. But as I said, eventually we hope all the universities will become centers of excellence. If you go to universities in the US or in the UK, you find some like scientific parks within universities. You know, IBM has its own park in Cambridge. University of Dayton, GE, they have their own plant in the university. You know, so there is going to be that kind of, that's what we envisage eventually. You know, you have some startups, industries coming close to those universities or even within them because of the kind of output in terms of knowledge that they get from those universities.
Over time, it is certain that the centers of excellence will evolve and become more formalized, even as they expand their scope of operations. TETFund has taken great care to provide detailed template for the technical training program to ensure that all departments responsible for oversight of the centers and staff are updated in their technical knowledge, in addition to global best practices of sustainable technological centers of excellence. And that is the paradigm shift.